In a quiet suburban neighborhood, where the streets were lined with green trees and families knew each other by name, lived a warm family who loved spending time together. This family had two children, a boy and a girl, who were full of energy and curiosity. They loved to play outside, run around the yard, and especially enjoy swimming during hot summer days. Their home had a big backyard with a small pool that the kids loved to jump into after school. The parents worked hard to create a safe and happy environment for their children, where laughter filled the air and neighbors often stopped by for friendly chats. Everyone in the neighborhood had always been kind to one another, and life moved peacefully in this little corner of the world. The children, like most kids, were full of innocent joy and excitement. They would often run outside the moment the school bell rang, ready to play with their friends or splash around in the pool. Their days were filled with simple pleasures, catching butterflies, playing tag, or sitting on the porch enjoying ice cream. The parents trusted the neighborhood and felt it was a safe place for their children to explore, grow, and have fun. The community was one where people waved hello, borrowed sugar, and looked out for one another. It was the kind of place where kids could ride their bikes without worry, and parents could relax knowing their children were nearby. But not everyone in the neighborhood shared the same warm and friendly attitude. Across the street lived a woman named Karen. She was known for being very strict and serious about rules. She did not like when people stepped outside of what she thought was right. Karen was the kind of person who watched carefully, and some neighbors whispered that she was quick to judge and complain about the smallest things. Many families tried to avoid unnecessary trouble with her because she was very vocal and stubborn. She had a strong belief that everyone should follow her version of how things should be, and she was not afraid to make a big deal if she thought someone was crossing the line. While others enjoyed friendly chats, Karen often kept to herself, watching the neighborhood with a sharp eye. One warm summer afternoon, the children from the friendly family were outside playing as usual. They were laughing and chasing each other, their faces glowing with happiness under the bright sun. The boy suddenly noticed that the gate to Karen's backyard pool was open. The pool was sparkling, inviting, and looked like the perfect place to cool off. Without thinking much about it, the children thought it might be okay to go in and swim for a little while. After all, no one was around, and the gate was not locked. They believed that maybe Karen wouldn't mind since the gate was left open. They didn't mean to be disrespectful or cause trouble. They only wanted to enjoy the cool water on a hot day. Kids often make decisions based on what feels right in the moment, without understanding all the rules grown-ups set. The boy and girl carefully walked over to the pool and dipped their toes in. They smiled and splashed water at each other, giggling with pure joy. It was a moment of innocent fun, a break from the heat, and nothing seemed wrong to them. They thought about their own pool back home and how swimming made the day better. The children felt free and happy, enjoying the water as if it belonged to them. They stayed just a little while, enjoying the feeling of the cool water and the sun on their skin. They had no idea that this simple action was about to cause a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, inside her house, Karen was watching from a window. She saw the children in her pool and instantly felt a surge of anger and fear. To Karen, this was a clear violation, someone trespassing on her private property without permission. She could not believe the children had entered her yard and swum in her pool like it was theirs. Her mind raced with thoughts of safety, property damage, and disrespect. She had strict rules about her home and yard, and she believed everyone should respect those rules. To her, the gate being open was no excuse. The children had no right to be there. She felt protective of her home and was determined to make sure this kind of thing would never happen again. Without wasting time, Karen picked up her phone and dialed 911. She spoke quickly and with urgency, telling the operator that children were trespassing and swimming in her pool without permission. She described the situation as serious, warning about safety risks and asking for immediate help. She was firm and demanding, convinced she was doing the right thing to protect her property and her family. To Karen, this was a clear case of wrongdoing that needed to be stopped right away. She expected the police to come quickly and handle the situation. The family whose children had been swimming was shocked when they saw police cars pull up in front of their home only minutes later. The parents rushed outside, confused and worried. They could not believe someone had called the police over what they saw as a small mistake. The kids were nervous, unsure of what would happen next. The parents tried to explain that the children didn't mean any harm and thought the open gate was an invitation to swim. They wanted to solve the problem peacefully, but the arrival of the police made the situation tense, and the atmosphere in the neighborhood quickly changed. The police officers got out of their cars and began speaking to Karen and the family. They listened carefully as each side shared their story. The children told the officers they didn't know they were doing something wrong and only wanted to swim for a short while. The parents apologized for the misunderstanding but made it clear their children had not intended to cause trouble. Karen, however, was very firm in her words. She repeated that the children were trespassing and that this was a serious matter. Her tone was aggressive and she did not want to back down. The police tried to calm everyone down and explain the law about private property, but Karen's anger made things difficult. Neighbors began to notice the police presence and slowly gathered to watch. Whispers filled the street as people wondered what had happened. Some neighbors felt sorry for the children and the family, while others were curious about Karen's side of the story. The peaceful neighborhood suddenly felt divided. What had started as a normal day of play was now a situation full of tension, confusion, and conflict. The family worried about what would come next, hoping for a peaceful solution. The children felt scared and unsure, wishing everything could go back to how it was before. In this quiet neighborhood, a simple mistake, children swimming in an unlocked pool, had unexpectedly opened a door to conflict. The story was only beginning, and soon emotions would run even higher. The peaceful days where neighbors smiled at each other were about to change, and everyone would learn a lesson about boundaries, respect, and how quickly things can get out of control. When Karen made that phone call to 911, she did not expect the situation to explode so quickly. But it did. The moment the police cars arrived in the quiet neighborhood, everyone's attention turned to the house where the kids had been swimming. The parents rushed outside, their faces full of confusion and worry. The children stood close to their mother and father, unsure what would happen next, feeling a mix of nervousness and fear. They had no idea that their innocent swim would lead to such a serious problem. The two police officers stepped out of their cars and immediately tried to take control of the situation. They understood they had to listen carefully to both sides before making any decisions. They approached Karen first, who was standing near her driveway, arms crossed and face flushed with anger. She told the officers loudly about how children had broken into her backyard, trespassed, and swum in her private pool without permission. Karen's voice was strong and firm, showing she believed she was right to call the police. She described the children as intruders and said that they had put themselves in danger by swimming without adult supervision. The officers nodded and took notes, but they also turned their attention to the family whose children were involved. The parents explained their side calmly. They said the kids had seen the pool gate open and thought it was okay to swim. The children had no idea they were causing trouble or breaking any rules. The mother and father apologized for the misunderstanding and assured the officers that their children would never intentionally cause harm or disrespect anyone's property. They asked for kindness and understanding because, after all, the children were just playing and having fun. The kids themselves tried to explain what had happened. The boy, a shy but honest child, said he only wanted to cool off because it was a hot day. The girl nodded, adding that they did not mean to upset anyone and that they had been careful around the pool. They didn't want to get in trouble. They just wanted to swim and enjoy the afternoon. Their innocent words touched some of the neighbors who were watching nearby. The children looked scared and worried, hoping the officers would understand. However, Karen was not convinced. She continued to insist that the children had trespassed on her private property and that something needed to be done. She spoke with frustration and a tone that made it clear she was not willing to back down. She argued that the gate being open was no excuse, and she accused the family of being careless and disrespectful. Karen's aggressive attitude made the police officers realize this would not be a simple call to resolve. Her strong belief in defending her property made the situation tense. The police officers tried their best to stay calm and polite. They explained to Karen the laws about private property and trespassing, and told her they would investigate the situation further. They asked her to calm down and cooperate so they could find a peaceful solution. But Karen's anger only grew. She raised her voice, shouted at the family and the officers, and refused to listen. Her behavior attracted more neighbors, who gathered around to see what was happening. The crowd grew quietly, watching the tense exchange. Some neighbors whispered to each other, unsure who to support. A few nodded in sympathy with the family, feeling that the children had made an honest mistake. Others seemed to agree with Karen, thinking rules must be followed no matter what. The peaceful street was no longer calm. Instead, it buzzed with tension, suspicion, and uncertainty. As the police officers spoke with Karen, the family, and the children, they tried to explain how these misunderstandings happen and how best to avoid them in the future. They told the family that even if the gate was open, the pool belonged to someone else, and permission was important. They reminded Karen that children often don't fully understand rules and boundaries. The officers suggested that everyone try to stay calm and be respectful, so the conflict would not grow worse. Karen, however, was too angry and upset to hear much of what the officers said. She accused the family of disrespect and demanded action. Her shouting made it harder for the officers to control the situation. The children, sensing the tension, began to feel more frightened. They clung to their parents, looking for comfort. The parents tried to calm their kids, promising them everything would be okay. But inside, they worried. They wondered how something so simple had become such a problem. The police officers realized that the situation was delicate. They wanted to keep the peace and avoid making things worse, but Karen's strong reaction made it difficult. They spoke carefully, trying to balance both sides' feelings. They explained that police were called to help, not to punish, and that sometimes it takes time to understand what really happened. They reassured the children and the parents that no one was in danger and that things could still be resolved peacefully. Meanwhile, more neighbors came out to watch, talking quietly in small groups. Some remembered times when they had similar misunderstandings and hoped this would end quickly. Others worried about how a call to 911 over kids swimming could affect the community's sense of safety and trust. Everyone felt the tension and hoped for a peaceful end. Karen's attitude remained tense and defensive. She told the officers that she would not let this slide and that something had to be done to protect her home. She kept pointing at the children as if to say they had done something terrible. Her words were loud and angry, and they made the atmosphere heavy and uncomfortable. The family stood quietly, hoping for understanding. They had never expected their afternoon swim to cause such a big problem. The parents whispered words of comfort to the children, telling them they were not in trouble and that everything would be fine. The kids wanted to believe them, but their eyes showed fear and confusion. The family wished Karen could see their side, that this was an accident, a mistake born from innocent fun. The police officers took a few moments to talk privately with Karen and then with the family. They explained what the law said about trespassing and private property. They also reminded Karen about the importance of patience and calm in solving problems. The officers suggested that the best way forward was for Karen to secure her pool area properly to avoid future misunderstandings. They encouraged the family to talk to Karen and the neighbors more openly about boundaries to prevent similar issues. Karen, still upset, said she would think about what the officers had said, but her anger had not disappeared. She made it clear that she wanted to protect her home at all costs and expected others to respect her rules. The police reminded everyone to stay calm and polite. They told the family and Karen that they were there to help and would do what they could to keep peace in the neighborhood. The officers then left the scene, promising to follow up if needed. The family was left to comfort their children and explain what had just happened. The children, although still shaken, began to relax, a little, knowing the police had listened to their side. The parents hugged them tightly, feeling thankful the situation had not gotten worse. They knew this was a lesson for everyone, about respect, communication, and understanding. As the police cars drove away, the neighbors slowly returned to their homes, still whispering about the event. Some shook their heads, wondering how a simple day of swimming had turned into a neighborhood drama. Others hoped that this incident would remind everyone to be kinder and more patient with one another. The children's innocent swim had unexpectedly stirred strong feelings and a call for rules, but it also reminded the neighborhood of how important it is to listen and understand before judging. In the end, the family hoped that with time, the neighborhood would heal. They dreamed of days when children could play freely. Neighbors would smile again, and simple misunderstandings would not turn into big problems. This day would be remembered, but they believed the future held peace and friendship once more. After the police left, the tension between Karen and the family did not fade. Instead, it seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. Karen was still very angry. She could not believe that her quiet neighborhood had turned into a scene with police and shouting just because of children swimming in her pool. To her, this was not a small issue. It was about respect, safety, and the rules that everyone must follow. She felt the family had ignored her rights and disrespected her property. She was determined to make sure this would never happen again. Karen started speaking loudly to anyone who would listen. She told neighbors about the incident in her own way, describing the family's children as careless and disrespectful. She said the parents were irresponsible for not teaching their kids better. Her words spread quickly through the neighborhood, and people began to take sides. Some agreed with Karen and believed rules must be followed strictly. Others felt sorry for the family and thought Karen had overreacted. The neighborhood was no longer as friendly as it once was. Quiet conversations at porches and over fences soon turned into debates about what was right and wrong. The family felt the effects of Karen's anger too. They tried to keep their lives normal, but it was hard. Some neighbors stopped greeting. Them and the children felt uncomfortable when they played outside. The parents worried about how this conflict was affecting their kids. They wanted peace and wanted to fix things before it got worse. They thought maybe talking calmly with Karen could help. They hoped she would understand that their children had not meant to cause any trouble and that the open gate had confused them. But Karen was not ready to listen. One afternoon, the family decided to approach Karen's house to speak with her directly. They wanted to clear the air and explain everything face to face. The mother knocked on Karen's door politely, hoping to find a calm moment. When Karen opened the door, her face looked tense and guarded. The parents began to speak gently, saying they understood her feelings and apologized again for the misunderstanding. They said the children had no intention to disrespect her and promised to teach them about respecting others' property. Karen listened, but her expression did not soften. She raised her voice, telling them that apologies were not enough. She accused the family of not taking responsibility seriously. She claimed that if something like this happened again, she would not hesitate to call the police immediately. Her words were sharp and made the parents feel like they were in a battle rather than a conversation. The children, standing nearby, felt scared and wished the adults would stop arguing. The parents tried to stay calm. They explained that they had already secured their own pool to avoid any more accidents. They suggested working together to make sure all kids in the neighborhood understood the rules about private property. They said they wanted the neighborhood to be safe and friendly for everyone. But Karen refused to back down. She kept insisting that the family should control their children better and keep them away from her property. The conversation ended without a clear solution. Both sides felt frustrated and upset. The family walked away feeling that Karen was not interested in peace, while Karen believed she had made her point loud and clear. The gap between them seemed to grow wider, and the neighborhood felt the strain. The children noticed the tension and felt less free to play outdoors. What had started as a simple mistake was now a big problem that affected everyone. As the days passed, Karen's behavior became more erratic. She started watching the family more closely, sometimes standing outside her house and looking at the children whenever they were playing. Her eyes would narrow when she saw the kids near the street, or even in their own yard. The family noticed her cold glances and worried about how this would affect their children's happiness and safety. The parents spoke to their kids about staying safe but also reminded them to be kind and patient. They hoped Karen's anger would calm down soon. Karen's frustration began to show in other ways too. She called the police again, complaining about small things like the children riding their bikes too fast or playing ball near her property line. Each time, the police would come and try to explain the rules or ask her to stay calm. But Karen seemed unable to let go of her anger. The neighborhood was growing tired of the ongoing conflict and hoped for an end. One day, the situation reached a new level, when Karen shouted loudly at the children while they were playing near their own home. She accused them of trying to trespass, again, and told them to stay away. The children felt hurt and confused. They loved their neighborhood and wanted to be friends with everyone. Their parents tried to calm Karen down, but she refused to listen. The neighbors who heard the shouting felt uncomfortable and worried about what might happen next. The police officers had warned Karen before about disorderly conduct, explaining that loud shouting and threatening behavior could lead to trouble, for her as well. But Karen seemed to ignore these warnings. Her anger had taken over her reason. She wanted to make sure the family understood that she was serious and would not tolerate any more disrespect. The family, on the other hand, wished Karen could see how much her anger was hurting the children and breaking the neighborhood's peace. Despite the difficulties, the family did not give up. They continued to teach their children about respect, boundaries, and how to behave politely. They tried to keep their heads high and hoped that one day the neighborhood could return to its friendly atmosphere. The parents also reached out to other neighbors to build support and encourage kindness. They believed that understanding and communication were the only ways to heal the wounds caused by this conflict. As weeks went by, the situation remained tense, but there were moments of hope. Some neighbors spoke privately with Karen, asking her to be patient and try to forgive the children's mistake. Others offered help to the family, saying they wanted to see peace return to the street. The children kept playing, sometimes cautiously, sometimes with joy, hoping their neighborhood would soon feel like home again. Through it all, the story showed how quickly small problems could grow into big conflicts if people did not listen, understand, or try to find common ground. Karen's strong beliefs and anger clashed with the family's desire for peace and friendship. The neighborhood learned that respect means more than following rules. It means caring for one another, being patient, and forgiving mistakes. The family hoped that this difficult time would soon end. They dreamed of a future where children could swim, play, and laugh without fear. They wished for neighbors to smile, say hello, and share moments of kindness. They believed that even the hardest conflicts could be healed with time, love, and understanding. And they held on to hope that one day Karen would find peace too. As the days continued, the tension in the neighborhood grew stronger, but so did the determination of the family to restore peace and understanding. The parents decided that they could not let fear or anger control their lives. They wanted to find a way to bring the community back together and help Karen see that the children had not meant any harm. The family knew this would not be easy, but they believed that kindness and patience could break through even the hardest walls. One morning, the father gathered the children and explained why it was important to be extra careful and respectful around other people's property. He said that even though they loved playing outside, they had to remember rules to keep everyone safe and happy. The children listened closely and promised to always be responsible. They wanted to make their parents proud and to help fix the problems that had grown in the neighborhood. The mother joined in and told the children that sometimes people get angry when they feel scared or worried. She explained that Karen's anger came from fear of losing control and wanting to protect what was hers. With that understanding, the family began to take small steps toward healing the neighborhood. They organized a block party, inviting neighbors to come together for an afternoon of fun, food, and friendship. The parents hoped this event would help people talk to each other, smile again, and forget the past conflicts, at least for a little while. They sent invitations to everyone, including Karen, even though they weren't sure she would come. The children helped make decorations and baked cookies to share. They were excited and nervous, hoping the day would be special. On the day of the party, the street was filled with color, laughter, and delicious smells. Neighbors brought food, music played softly, and children ran around playing games. The family greeted everyone warmly, sharing stories and smiles. Some neighbors came forward and said they appreciated the effort to bring the community back together. They admitted that tensions had been high and that everyone needed to be kinder and more understanding. The atmosphere began to change as people enjoyed the simple joy of being together. Karen arrived late to the party. She stood at the edge of the crowd, watching quietly. She didn't speak to many people, and her face looked serious. Some neighbors wondered if she would join or just leave early. The family approached her gently, welcoming her and offering food. At first, Karen refused, saying she was just passing through. But after a few moments, she took a small plate and sat down a little away from the others. As Karen sat quietly, the children walked over to her. They smiled and said hello politely. They offered her some of their homemade cookies and invited her to watch a game of tag. Karen's expression softened slightly. She looked surprised by the kindness from the children she had been so angry with. The mother watched from a distance, hopeful that this small moment might be the start of something new. Throughout the afternoon, Karen stayed at the party longer than anyone expected. She began to talk with some neighbors and even laughed softly at a joke. The children played nearby, happy to see her relaxed for once. The family took this as a sign that patience and kindness could make a difference. They continued to speak gently with Karen when they could, sharing stories about their lives and hopes for the neighborhood. Karen started to listen, though she still held back her full trust. The police officer who had responded to the 911 call also came to the party. He spoke with Karen privately and reminded her of the importance of community and patience. He praised the family for organizing the event and encouraged everyone to work together to prevent future problems. His presence helped calm Karen's nerves and made her think about how things could be different if people respected and supported each other. As the sun set, the neighborhood felt lighter. The party had been a chance to forget old conflicts and remember that people could be friends even after disagreements. Karen left the party quietly but with a small smile. The family waved goodbye, feeling hopeful that the future held better days. The children hugged their parents, proud of what they had helped create. In the days after the party, small changes began to happen. Karen started saying hello to the family when she saw them outside. She made fewer complaints and seemed less angry. The family noticed that the neighborhood felt friendlier, and children played together more freely. Some neighbors who had been quiet before joined in conversations and helped watch out for all the children's safety. The community was slowly healing. The family continued to teach their children about respect, responsibility, and kindness. They reminded them that even when things seem difficult, it's important to stay calm and try to understand others. The children learned that forgiveness and patience could be powerful tools for making the world a better place. They felt proud to be part of a community that was working to grow stronger. Karen, too, began to change. Though she still worried about her property and safety, she found moments to relax and smile. She started to see the children not as troublemakers, but as neighbors who just wanted to have fun. She realized that strict rules were important, but so was kindness and patience. Her heart softened slowly, and she became more willing to listen and work together. The story of the swimming incident became a lesson for the whole neighborhood. People talked about how misunderstandings and anger could cause pain, but that kindness and courage could bring healing. The family's efforts to bring peace showed that even in difficult times, hope and friendship could grow. The children learned that mistakes don't have to ruin relationships. They can be chances to learn and forgive. Through this experience, the neighborhood discovered the true meaning of community. It was not just about rules and fences, but about caring for each other and building trust. Everyone realized that being neighbors means supporting one another, even when things go wrong. The family's bravery and Karen's slow change reminded them that patience and kindness can turn conflict into friendship. In the end, the neighborhood was stronger than before. The children played happily, knowing their neighbors cared about them. Adults smiled and greeted each other warmly. The pool, once the center of a problem, became a symbol of how people can come together and heal. This story, full of tension and hope, taught a powerful lesson: that even the hardest conflicts can be solved with love, respect, and a little courage. After the neighborhood began to heal and the tension between Karen and the family lessened, life slowly returned to normal. But the story wasn't just about peace returning. It was about the lessons everyone learned from what happened. The incident. With the kids swimming in Karen's pool, the police, and the conflict had changed many people in ways they did not expect. The family, especially the parents, took this experience as a chance to teach their children not only about respect and responsibility but also about courage and forgiveness. The children learned that sometimes people make mistakes, not just them, but adults too. And when those mistakes cause problems, the best way forward is to face the situation honestly, calmly, and with an open heart. The mother often told her children that everyone carries feelings, sometimes fear, anger, or sadness, and these feelings can make people act in ways they wouldn't usually. She reminded them that understanding those feelings in others helps us forgive and find peace. The father added that standing up for yourself is important, but so is knowing when to listen and when to say sorry. These lessons helped the children grow stronger inside and helped them build good relationships, not just in their neighborhood, but wherever they went. Karen's transformation was slower but meaningful. She started to realize that holding on to anger hurt her more than anyone else. The police visits and conflicts made her life stressful and lonely. She remembered how peaceful and friendly the neighborhood used to be. Little by little, Karen opened her heart to new possibilities. She reached out to the family one day, apologizing quietly for her harsh words and actions. The family welcomed her apology with kindness, showing that forgiveness could be real and healing. From that day on, Karen worked to be a better neighbor. She stopped calling the police for small things and started greeting the children with a smile. Sometimes she even invited the family over for tea or helped with neighborhood activities. It wasn't easy for her, and sometimes old feelings returned, but she kept trying because she understood that friendship and trust take time and effort. The community, inspired by this story of conflict and healing, started organizing more events to bring neighbors together. They held regular picnics, cleanup days, and small celebrations where everyone was invited. People talked more, helped each other, and looked out for one another's safety. The neighborhood became a place where children could play freely, and adults could share moments of kindness. The family and Karen became symbols of how people can change and grow, even after difficult times. The children felt proud of their part in the story. They learned that even young people can make a difference by being kind, respectful, and brave. They saw that mistakes don't have to lead to fear or anger, but can become lessons that bring people closer. Their friendship with Karen grew stronger, and they learned to understand and accept people even when they seemed different or upset. The parents felt relieved and hopeful. They had worried about the impact of the conflict on their children and the neighborhood, but saw that patience and Love could heal wounds. They continued to teach their children to be good neighbors and to believe in the power of kindness. The story of the swimming pool incident became a story they shared with others, about respect, forgiveness, and the importance of community. The police officer who had been involved also reflected on the experience. He realized that sometimes calling the police can make things worse if people don't try to solve problems first through conversation and understanding. He encouraged other officers to work closely with communities to build trust and prevent conflicts before they start. His advice helped other neighborhoods stay peaceful and friendly. Even after everything settled, the memory of that summer stayed with everyone. It was a reminder that people are human, sometimes imperfect, sometimes scared, but always capable of change. The neighborhood grew stronger because they faced their problems together, learned from them, and chose kindness over anger. The story of the kids swimming in Karen's pool was no longer about conflict. It became a story about hope, courage, and friendship. In the end, this true real-life story showed that misunderstandings can happen to anyone. But with respect, patience, and forgiveness, even the hardest problems can be solved. It taught that families and neighbors should always try to talk and listen before letting fear or anger take over. And it reminded everyone that the best communities are built not just on rules but on love, care, and the courage to forgive. The family, Karen, and the neighborhood continued to grow together, making new memories filled with laughter and friendship. The pool, once a source of conflict, became a place where children and neighbors shared happy times. And in this small neighborhood, the people learned a big lesson, that peace starts with understanding and grows with kindness.